settle in and listen to our mixtape and know the music vanishes. Enjoy your butternut sandwiches.
Well, hello, boys and girls, and welcome back again to the mixtape. I'm Jason Emmett.
I'm Casey Masterpiece.
And I'm Twisted Kid Matt.
I'm Jason Cottle.
That's the
with me
thumbnail right there.
is Kevin Coleman and Matthias Brown. This is that's our
These
NPR,
are NPR
It's our
voices.
NPR cast. Guys, we've talked about this episode for a while, and I'm kind of excited to get into it because
Finally happening, guys.
it is finally happening. And it's funny because I tell you guys a lot, like I will discuss these with my wife before she'll ask me, like, what are you doing the topic on? And then I'll tell her and I'll kind of go over stuff. And of course, when we get into this, I want to be very clear about this list today. A majority of the movies on this list, even though this is the movies that sucked, but the soundtracks are good, I actually like a majority of the movies on this list. But we need to recognize that that does not mean they're not bad movies, because they are bad movies.
I'm looking at the list, and yeah, you're right.
I don't know if an
Considered
argument
bad movies.
I don't know if an argument can be made for any of these except for maybe two. Actually, I'm not gonna. We'll make the argument when we get there, because I think a couple of these have just been misconstrued over the years, and at least one of these was considered bad at the time, but it has grown to become a lot of people's favorites, as I've learned. So we'll
Really?
get into it. Yeah.
Cult
So that's
cla-
where we're do what?
a cult classic, huh?
Yeah, not just that. It's become. I think people hated it at the time, and we'll talk about why, and then they've come to like love it over the years. It's very weird, but and I think there's a reason for all of that.
It's
But
the sleeper hit of the summer.
no, it was a huge hit. It made a
Oh,
lot of money, but people did not. Yeah. So we are going to be talking about movies that sucked, but the soundtracks rocked. We've talked about this many, many times. There's a few on here that were I put the list together, but it's off of things that you guys have mentioned and stuff we've talked about. So it's not like we didn't all sort of have some kind of input on this, because we did.
Yeah.
The first one I want to talk about is one that we've mentioned on this show
many times.
number of times, because the first movie, this is actually a sequel, and the first movie, the movie's great and the soundtrack is great.
It's amazing.
The problem is in 1996, The Crow City of Angels came out, and the movie sucked, but the
It's
soundtrack
not good.
is fantastic. So this movie gets a whopping 14% on Rotten Tomatoes, 40%
Wow.
audience.
Is it really
14%
that bad?
Yeah, 14% critic, 40% audience, which still is not good.
Yeah.
Oh, I just want to tell you guys, Borderlands is not a good movie. Trust the
Yeah, I've
critics
been
on
seeing
this
some
one.
reviews.
I did a quick review. It's on my TikTok and on my YouTube. It's not the worst movie I've ever seen, and it has some entertaining parts, but it's like really, I'm just going to put it this way: the problem with the movie was Eli Roth. End of discussion. The directing's bad. The story, and he helped write it. Story's not great. The dialogue shouldn't have happened. But anyway, this one gets a 40% audience on Rotten Tomatoes. It's considered trash by most people. Like, people just do. I don't think I run into people very often that are like, oh, I love the Crow City of Angels. Most people are like, God, I hate the Crow City of Angels.
Yeah.
Um,
The
But the
soundtrack is
soundtrack-
amazing, though.
the
So good.
soundtrack is so good. It's one of the best soundtracks of the 90s, in my opinion. We had PJ Harvey, White Zombie, Filter, the Toady. Actually, a lot of
Cologne.
these from the 90s, guys, the movies we talk are going to have a lot of the same people on the soundtrack. So
Yeah.
PJ Harvey, Filter, the Toadies, Bush, Seven Mary 3, Linda Perry. Yeah. I did have to endure Courtney Love and Hole. They do have a song about
But
this.
at least it's a cover. They're doing
Yeah.
Gold Dust Woman by
They do
Fleetwood
Gold
Mac.
Dust Woman, and it's the first track, so you can just skip it and move on. I'm notorious, guys. If you have not been listening to the show since the beginning,
We're not big fans.
I can't stand Courtney Love's voice, or so. But the soundtrack itself is fantastic, and I bought this. I remember I actually owned most of these, and I would just cruise down the road and just put this soundtrack in. Like, we're talking my 20s, and probably early 20s. Let's see, this is 1996. I was 20, so this is one of those you'd kind of cruise. Man, this is when you enjoyed cruising.
Mm.
I see your face, Matt,
Yeah,
birthday boy.
I'm doing the math.
But remember those early days of driving where you would sometimes just want to go get in your car at night and just cruise around just because you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
This
yeah.
was
Put your
yeah.
favorite cassette tape in.
Well, I had CDs in '96.
I didn't have that technology
I had
myself.
cassettes. I had cassettes before. I had I had like a big case. Remember
The
carrying
case
it
you
was a
got to
big
move
block.
from one,
Yeah.
oh, we're riding
It
in
was
the
like-
car. I'm taking the music, and you pick your case up out of your car and put it in their car.
Yeah,
drive
but the
around with that.
cassette ones were blocks. They had to be
Yeah.
thick so you could put all your cassettes in them. And then
Have like a
CD
briefcase
cases,
in your car full of
right.
cassette.
not thicker than a briefcase, but yeah, pretty
Mhm.
much. And then CDs came out. We stopped using cases.
The
We took
Case
them out,
Logic.
put them in the sleeves. Case Logic, God, they must have made a fortune in the '90s.
Dude, I
Right.
have them for my DVD collection right now.
Still now,
DVDs
yeah.
and Blu-rays. Mine are
Every
like
once in a
hard
while-
shell cases too. Freaking love
So
them.
it's coming back in vogue for people to collect DVDs again. That's becoming like a new thing, like
Yeah.
kind of like vinyl made its comeback. DVDs are, which I think is a little odd,
Yeah.
a little different, but because I
They-
think there's
They
something to
keep
be
taking
said about
everything
the
off of
sound.
streaming.
Well, the sound of vinyl it definitely
Yeah.
is different than the sound of anything else. But watching a DVD versus you can stream in 4K now if you want. So it's just taking up space. But I do get it. There's people like us who appreciate the cover art and things like that. So I get it, but it's making a comeback, and I think Case Logic might they might start making some money
If
again.
they were smart, they'd start re-releasing some old classics.
I do want to say a couple of things about the Crow City of Angels soundtrack because this is just really cool. There, like I said, the music made this movie worth happening because the music was so good. But the initial pressings of the vinyl came with a comic book and the CD booklet. It was written by John Wagner and illustrated by Dean Ormstrom, and I would love to have my hands on that comic right now because I bet it's worth a little something.
Yeah.
Unlike the movie that, like I said, bombed in the box office, the album was certified platinum. Sales exceeded 1 million copies.
Is there a chance you can actually find like a PDF copy of the comic online?
Probably.
Just to check it out, but
I wouldn't mind having the vinyl with that comic in it though, just to have it.
yeah, that's gonna be worth a pretty penny.
Or it'd just be cool to own. Like
Yeah.
I'm a vinyl collector, but I am I don't buy new vinyl, and I will only buy new vinyl if it's released as a limited edition with something cool on it. But I only collect old vinyl, so I would want it from '96. I would want it the way it comes. So great album though.
for that.
Great album. Linda Perry from Four Non Blondes. If you guys don't know who she is, she has a song on this album with Grace Slick, and it is so freaking good, man. It's just one of those that I'm like, yeah, this song.
Yeah.
It's except
Not only
PJ Harvey, the Toadies, Filter, great album.
Old, like early Corn on it, and I believe this is the only place you can get that specific song, which I think
Would they be called
something
baby corn?
Baby corn, yeah. you eat like
No, this was before they changed the name from Maze.
Oh, with Frankie Valerie.
It was it was before they really popped on the scene.
Oh, nice.
Dude.
I know that was corny, guys. I'll shucks. I'll stop.
Wow.
I better not do anymore.
God, he just keeps popping out with them. God. My God. Oh yeah,
Matt
Deftones was on there. Iggy Pop.
Matt has to keep clearing his voice today. It's a little husky.
Mm,
Yep. Okay.
Well, Iggy
that
Pop
was
was
a,
in the
that was a
movie.
stretch right there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it was a good stretch. Listen, Iggy Pop was in the movie. He was supposed to be in the first movie, and he
Fun
couldn't
Boy?
be in it so they put him in the second movie because he had something going on. He couldn't be in the first movie, so it's not surprising that he was on the soundtrack.
Yeah.
I actually think a lot of these songs, not all, but I think most of these songs, I don't think are anywhere but on this soundtrack. Like I don't think they were released on anything else. So it's worth having just for that.
It's White Zombie doing "I'm Your Boogeyman," which got brought up in our interview with Shania Salt.
Shania Salt.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Seven Mary 3, their song on this album is so good. Like this album hits, man. It's so funny because quite a few of the soundtracks we're going to talk about come from the 90s, and you're going to hear what type of music they were putting in movies in the 90s, and it's like, yeah, man, this stuff just rocked. And this is a lot of what I was listening to. The next movie, however, does not come from the 90s. It comes from a different decade altogether, literally 1980. Um, I, I like this movie, but it is so bad. It is just pure 80s cheese. And this movie is Xanadu. The first thing we need to be very clear about is Electric Light Orchestra did the music for this movie, and I'm a huge fan. If you're not, then you were hit in the head as a small child and there's something wrong with you. I don't know what to tell you because ELO is a killer band. Jeff Lynne is amazing. Great music.
Yes, I was hit in the head as a child, and no, I don't like Xanadu. So the math checks
The
out
movie
there.
or the music?
Neither. I've never seen Xanadu.
Neither
I
have I.
only know Olivia Newton-John's theme song, probably
Which is
called the
great.
Love theme from Xanadu, because that's what they did
No,
in
it's
the
called
80s.
Xanadu.
Yeah.
But Strange Magic is off this album. You know, Electric Light Orchestra.
Really?
Strange Magic.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, from the movie. Like they did all the music in this.
Didn't know.
Jeff Lynne has a version of him singing Xanadu as well. That's out there readily available. Well, I also like Olivia Newton-John. She was one of my first early crushes, and I was a big fan of hers back in the 80s. So Rotten Tomatoes gives this gem a 30% with the critics, and the audiences give it a little higher, 58%. I think it's nostalgia goggles, you know.
Mm.
I think people remember it fondly, and it's also pure cheese, so I think that people have kind of latched onto that. People like that stuff, you know. The soundtrack, though, is, like I said, it's great. The movie's about roller skating goddesses. Yeah, I said it. Roller skating
Oh, so
goddesses.
that's the whole movie? Because I've seen clips of it.
Yeah, they're muses. And
Okay.
he opens a roller skating disco rink. It's a whole thing. But there's a really
right.
awesome scene in this movie where Olivia Newton-John has a flashback from like the 40s where she dances with Fred Astaire. And if that scene alone is worth watching. You can go on YouTube and watch it. It's her and Fred Astaire dancing together, and it's wonderful.
Wait a minute, like the real Fred Astaire?
Yeah, Fred Astaire, yeah.
I hope he
It was
didn't.
1980, so you know
He was,
wasn't.
yeah. I know he wasn't as spry as he used
He
to
was,
be.
yeah,
but
he was older, but he was still around, and that's why the scene is so.
was he in the
it's become-
70s? I'm assuming. At that time,
Probably about right, somewhere in there.
okay.
It's worth that scene has become kind of iconic, and it's you can watch it on YouTube. People have kind of commented over the years, just that it's a fun scene to watch. Like I said, the film was a flop. Soundtrack was actually a worldwide success. Went double platinum in the U.S. and Canada. The singles "Magic" and "Xanadu" reached #1 in the United States and in the U.K. So the album far outseeded, the movie. So
It's so weird.
outseeded is not a word. I realize that, but I was just
Yeah.
going to go with it since nobody stopped me.
That had to have been the thing where people
Reminder.
saw the movie and went, the movie sucked, but the soundtrack was awesome. And they tell
Yeah.
their friends and they're like, I'm not going to go see that damn movie. And then they bought the album instead. It's the only way that they did that. Like, I've never seen this movie, but I've heard the soundtrack is great. So
Yeah,
maybe that's what
so-
happens here.
Mm,
We tell
sure.
people about these movies. They're like, well, I've never seen The Crow City of Angels, but I've heard the soundtrack is good. So I'm going to check that out. And then that's just how the soundtracks end up doing way more than, because I looked it up. The Crow City of Angels soundtrack went platinum.
Yeah, it went. I said
So,
that it went.
the movie,
platinum.
though,
It was-
Damn.
went toilet. Yeah.
Yeah.
It did not go the same.
Like, it was a
direction.
sharp drop off. Because, I mean, not to keep harping on The Crow, but the original version, like the original film, had a lot going on around it, like publicity wise, but it's also just a genuinely great movie with a
It is a
great
great
soundtrack.
movie.
And then they're like, well, we got to follow that up. And then they did. And whew,
There's been a
just
lot of
just
discussion.
a big old whiff.
And I'm going to say, like, people have said, like, do you think The Crow would have done as well had Brandon Lee not passed away? And my answer is no. I think it's a good movie. I think it would have done well. People would still love it. But I think there were a whole group of people that went to see it because he died and because there was all the rumor that the scene where he gets shot is actually, it's not in the
It's
movie.
not in the
but
movie. Yeah.
that. And we knew so many things, like it was they took CGI and superimposed a face. Like everybody knew all this stuff going in. I think that definitely helped the movie in the box
Yeah.
office, but it's a wonderful movie. The sequel, I think also, besides the fact that it's not a wonderful movie, you're butting up against, like, you're making a sequel to a movie where a guy died. And
Yeah.
Yeah,
It-
and
it's
it's
a-
like
it was a
the
hard
main
follow-up.
star.
Yeah.
and in a very tragic way. It's not
Mm.
like he didn't, he was on the set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not to mention the guy that pulled the trigger. He quit acting. Like I don't think he started
I
up
blame
again
him.
until recently, if he even did that. But
It's
it traumatized.
Yeah, I
it
think it was
wasn't-
in
it wasn't his
Glenn Ross.
wasn't his
or,
fault. It was
Yeah.
a prop malfunction, but it still would mess with you.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? The next one is definitely on Matt's radar, has been forever. This is one of Matt's all-time favorite.
Yeah,
I think
we've
just
talked about it a couple times here.
not just soundtracks, but probably one of your favorite CDs of all time.
Yeah. I actually listened to
this
it
is-
on Friday last week.
This is Spawn from 1997. Spawn from 1997. Rotten Tomatoes critic score is 17%. Audience is 36%. I have some problems with that because
think
I
this was
understand
a little higher.
I understand this is not a perfect movie. I get that.
Right.
I get that
And
there are
it's
problems,
early ass CGI.
but
Mhm.
it's not as bad as people make it out to be.
Right.
I think what happened, and this is one of those where I think over the years more people have accepted it. Spawn was at this massive like height, right? People loved Spawn and they said we're making a movie, and all these Spawn fans went to see it and they're like, what is this? Because this is way toned down. And it is. And I think once people kind of accepted that and started looking at the few good points, like Michael Jai White is great in it.
John
Leguizamo is
Leguizamo
fantastic in
alone.
it.
Yeah.
And their
I
suits
almost thought
look
you were going to say
great.
John Legend for some reason. I was like,
John Legend as Clown is great.
what?
There's suits in it. Like
Just sit
they
there
look
playing a
good.
piano in a clown
Mhm.
suit.
Like all the practical effects in this movie
Yeah.
are really well done.
Yeah.
And some of the CGI is good. Some of it's really bad. The cape stuff is notoriously bad, but the soundtrack is great. One of the really cool things about this soundtrack is that
Also has filter on it.
every single song on this is a collaboration. So there's no song that was one band. Every song is two bands. And we get some really cool 90s bands. I mean, we got Crystal Method, Marilyn Manson, the Sneaker Pimps, Butthole Surfers, Moby, Stabbing Westward, Slayer, Apollo 440, Korn again, Silverchair. This is like an epic
I
90s
forgot Korn was on
rock.
that soundtrack.
Yeah. It's like rock techno blends.
It's
Every
like
one of
they
these songs.
took the Crow City of Angels soundtrack, took like half the bands off that, put it on the Spawn soundtrack,
and added electronica with it.
Yeah.
Like they got some like industrial or techno band to do stuff with them. It's
Slayer,
cool, man. This is a really cool soundtrack. And it's a product of the 90s that hits pretty hard for me because I love so many of these bands. Like I was a huge fan of a lot of these. And seeing bands like Apollo 440, which a lot of people forgot about Apollo 440, but they were great, man. And Stabbing Westward, who is a band that I think deserved more attention than they ever got. They had a few songs that were kind of I don't know what happened with them. Like, did they break up or something? Because they were starting to kind of rise.
They went on a hiatus, and actually, speaking of Stabbing Westward, they recently, within the past couple of years, came out with like a little EP where they actually covered The Cure, Burn. They did Burn.
Oh, I bet that's good.
It's really good. Linking it back to the original
the
Crow
Crow
soundtrack.
Yeah.
And it's a really cool cover. It's actually on Spotify, and it's highly recommend it. So
I was really into a band that only had, now some will argue, but they technically only had one album, then they did a remix, and that was Gravity Kills. So Stabbing Westward and Gravity Kills had a lot in common. And so when Stabbing Westward came out, they were
mostly
Stabbing
the
Westward
X
was
Games soundtrack.
a more mainstream version of Gravity Kills, I would say. But they had songs that were just starting to take off, man, and then like I said, they just sort of disappeared. And it was kind of a bummer because I was always a really big fan. We've talked about Save Myself on the show before and what that song was about. Because it's a cool song. But the next one is one that I know a lot of kids in the 80s, so people around our age are big fans of the movie, even though they all know it's horrible. It just came out at just that right time, I think, where it was like horror movie that us kids could kind of latch onto, sort of thing, and kind of had fun with it. But the movie's not good. 1986, we had a really killer album come out by a little band called AC/DC for the movie Maximum Overdrive. And they did a weird thing with this because it's not this is technically the official soundtrack for Maximum Overdrive, but what's weird is it also just came out as if it was an AC. It doesn't say Maximum Overdrive on it. The album
When you
called
go
Remain
and buy the album, it'll have a sticker on it that says,
sometimes, yeah.
yeah, it'll say official soundtrack of Maximum Overdrive, which is kind of a selling point because who doesn't love a movie about sentient vehicles that come to life and start killing humans? Like a soda machine that just shoots cans of soda out and kills people.
Way
It's great.
early.
I like
When I started
Maximum
the
Overdrive.
YouTube channel for the movie mix, I did I think they should remake Maximum Overdrive, and here's what I think they should do video, because it's based off a Stephen King story called Cars only, and Stephen King, very high on
Oh.
cocaine,
Yeah.
wrote the script for this. He's admitted, I mean, he was way,
It seems like it would be.
which is kind of what makes this movie. It's so bad, but it's kind of fun because it's so bad, and it's definitely not entertaining.
Yeah.
It's entertaining as hell, just not, it's just not good.
Yeah. It's a fun Saturday morning movie to put on and have
Absolutely.
your wife walk in the room and go, oh, "What the hell?"
Which, if
One of that kind of movie,
I hate to keep
Why is the
circling,
Green Goblin on a truck?
right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Why?
very true story. By the way,
Maximum
I
Overdrive,
met a
Twisted
guy
Metal, same thing.
met a guy at a con that found that the head off that truck had been like set aside and was deteriorating. He bought it, he fixed it up, and now he tours with it to cons, and you can get your picture taken with the giant green goblin face off the truck. And I think that is awesome that he did that.
Yeah.
And if you meet him, he has all this stuff about the history of it. Sometimes he'll have certain cast members come out with him. You can get your picture with a cast member and the face, but I think it's doing well.
Yeah, I feel like somebody did that with the original Bruce animatronic from Jaws too. It was just like in a junkyard, like hanging somewhere, and somebody went, "I'm buying that if I can."
You've seen
And
the
they fixed it up.
deteriorated Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's nightmare.
Well, I
fuel.
think a few of them have been getting refurbished and stuff as much as they
I've
can.
also seen the deteriorating Killer Clowns from Outer Space puppets.
Is it that, or is it Scared Stupid? Because
a little of both. You can see some of that in there too. So
if you guys don't know, they use the same molds from Killer Clowns from Outer Space to do Ernest Scared Stupid. So you'll see similarities between the goblins or whatever they are in that. So
that's a fun series, by the way. It's just the Ernest movies. Like we don't.
Some
get
of
that
them
kind
are
of
great.
movie.
Ernest Goes to Jail.
Have you noticed we're not really talking about the movies we're actually talking about? We're talking about other stuff that's better.
We are though. So let's talk about this for a minute. Maximum Overdrive, like I said, I think kids of a certain age kind of latched onto it, even though we knew it was a bad movie.
Yeah.
But the really cool thing, the movie, it lost money. It did not do well. I think it had like a $9 million budget, and it couldn't even make that back in the cinema. But the album, Who Made Who, which is all AC/DC, this song, that track was the most successful single for AC/DC in like years. It like did really well for them. It reached number 16 in the UK, number 33 in the US, and is actually one of my top 5 favorite AC/DC songs. Who Made Who? It's a fun ass song, and it works well with the movie, but it like we said, it can be its own completely separate thing. Like this soundtrack works great with the movie, but it doesn't have to, which was kind of genius. And I should have done some research to see, but I'm kind of curious, like, were they already working on this? And so Back to the Future, right? We've talked about this, but Huey Lewis, they approach Huey Lewis, they say, we want a song. We want you to do a song for Back to the Future. And he's like, I don't know how to do soundtrack songs. And they're like, it doesn't matter. Just give us a song. Power of Love isn't actually have anything to do with Back to the Future. They just used it. So I kind of wonder if AC/DC was working on an album. Who Made Who, I think, if it wasn't intended for this movie, it clearly kind of should be because it works. I don't know. But yeah, it's a great soundtrack. If you guys haven't listened in a while, go throw
Yeah.
in Who Made Who. All right, so we are going to move on to our next one. And this one, I can't wait. I think Kevin has brought this up before. Maybe not the soundtrack, but definitely the movie. This was one of those that when we saw the previews, and I'm going to tell you, I know what I'm pretty sure about this. I am fairly certain the movie I was watching when I saw the sneak preview for this movie was Lethal Weapon. I'm pretty sure we'd gone to the theater to see Lethal Weapon. I could be wrong about that, or Lethal Weapon 2. I don't remember. And we see a preview for this movie, this action movie that's coming out. And we are all like, oh my God, that looks amazing. However, when it actually landed, it had a 41% critics and 48% audience. It did well, though, but it only did well because of who starred in it and because the trailer was extremely misleading. This movie was The Last Action Hero, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I remember being so excited because the preview looked awesome. We're like, this is going to be like the best action movie we've ever seen. And then the movie came out and it wasn't an action movie at all. Matt, you are muted. It was not.
Damn it.
Turns out it wasn't an action movie. It was a straight up goofy ass comedy with some really bad acting and just weird ideas about people coming out of the movies. It could have been cool, by the way. That could have been cool. It did not work at all. Do either of you guys like this movie?
It was okay.
I don't know if I've ever seen the entire movie at one
That's
time.
fair.
I've definitely
think it's
seen
hard to get
clips of
through.
it.
Had a lot of good actors in it, and didn't have the principal from let's see, Ferris Bueller Day Off.
Mm. I
No,
hope
he
not.
looks kind of like him, but it's not him.
Okay,
You're
It's like,
talking about
I'm
the
looking
black
it up
guy that
now.
switches his eyeballs out. No, he looks. They kind of have a similarity in the vibe, but no, it's not him.
I hope they're not that similar in vibe because
Yeah. Ooh, God,
the principal from Ferris Bueller.
There are some
Ooh.
fun scenes. Like there's a scene where they're walking in the movie world. They're walking through a movie store, video store, and there's a stand-up of the Terminator, but it's Sylvester Stallone as the Terminator instead of Arnold Schwarzenegger because they're in the movie world. And there is a funny scene where they come out of the movie world and the kid's like, you have to tell people your name is Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he can't say his own last name. He's like, my name is Arnold, like Schwarzenwhistle. Like he can't pronounce his own last name, which I thought was funny. Done way better many years later in the movie or in the TV show Supernatural when they get pulled into the real world and Jared Padalecki's like, in this world I'm something called a Padalecki, which I thought was really funny. But yeah, the movie's not good, guys. It's not good at all. But the soundtrack, AC/DC, Alice in Chains, Megadeth, Def Leppard, Anthrax is on this. It's amazing. It is a 90s metalheads freaking wet dream. Like it's dude. I mean, just look at that. Queensryche's on this. Cypress Hill, I think. Yeah, I mean, it's like Tesla does the theme song, which is called Last Action Hero. And yeah, the soundtrack did really well. Like people like really dug this soundtrack. I think it sold like over 1 million copies. This one was also certified platinum. The album reached number 7 on the Billboard 200 album chart. So it's so weird to think like there's all these movies that it's like, yeah, that sucked. But do you think this is a thing where they're working on the movie and they're like, guys, we got to do something because this movie's not doing good. Who can we get on the soundtrack?
Yeah,
We got to bump this up a little because
it's like this is a lot of weird scenes mashed together. Ugh. Get Cypress Hill on the phone.
it's
Like,
like,
all right.
like who's popular right now, guys?
Yeah,
Fishbone, because whatever happened to Fishbone?
we're still together. Surprisingly,
I was telling you about seeing Borderlands and it not being good, and this is part of the problem that made it so. I mean, besides bad dialogue, weird direction. Like the direction was just bizarre in some of the scenes, and what was supposed to land as comedy just wasn't funny, and some bad effects. But the music, we were talking about it afterwards. There's a fight scene in the movie that's kind of a cool fight scene, and they're playing Ace of Spade in the background. only, you know how normally in a movie the
That'll
music
elevate an
is,
action scene.
well, it should have, except it's so buried that you can hear it's Ace of Spades. I actually was sitting in the theater for a second going, I went, yeah, it's Ace of Spades. And it's not like it's playing on a boombox. It's supposed to be the music playing during the fight scene. But it was kind of, it's not up to where, it was just weird. It was too quiet. I don't know. Weird movie.
Hmm.
Soundtracks can definitely change the flow of a movie.
Yeah.
And it can help
Very much
elevate a
so.
movie. Yeah. A okay movie can be made better if the music in it helps.
Mhm.
So sound design and soundtrack and score, all that really affects a movie. We did a whole episode on movie scores as well,
Mhm.
which you guys can check out if you have not listened to. We talked about one of Matt's favorites. We've talked about a couple of my favorites, but this next one is a weird favorite of mine from the 90s. This is in that I love a lot of it, but this is one of those they used to do this thing where they would like put music in, and then in between music they would put clips of people talking from the movies. From Dusk Till
Yeah.
Dawn has one of my favorites, which is the Chet scene where he get us the R rating, but the pussy, come on in, pussy loves. It's way crude. It's so Cheech that it's, you know, I wonder if they even scripted that or they just said, go at it, Cheech. And he
Yeah.
just did what he did. This next movie did that a lot. And those scenes kind of, or those parts of the soundtrack throw me off. And then they let the star, there's a scene in the movie where the star sings, and that's on the soundtrack.
Yes, it is.
And I don't think it needed to be, but this movie is The Cable Guy. The Cable Guy. Yes, there
Filters
is a-
on that one too.
Yes, and
And
so,
Cypress Hill.
yep, and the Toadies.
Yeah.
and
What about
and-
corn? Is there
and Silverchair. No corn.
corn.
They
No
replaced
corn.
corn with cracker on this one. It's
Just
true,
a different
Cracker
food band. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jerry Cantrell, Porno for Pyro is doing a cover of Satellite of Love, and it's fantastic. And Primitive Radio Gods, which
Yeah.
standing outside a
Great
broken
song.
phone booth, standing outside a broken phone booth, it's fine. I mean,
Broken bone
yeah.
food. Yep.
Shut up. Stroke.
I don't have it loaded up.
Standing outside a broken phone booth. So back a while ago, months ago, I actually reached out to the lead singer from Primitive Radio Gods to see about having him on the show, and super nice. Not doing interviews, but this is 100% true story. He's like, I don't really like talk about the band much anymore, but if you ever just want to get on and just you and I chat about music, not an interview, just talk about music, I'm like, I mean, that's, thank you. Like, it was very cool. That song's great, and it was on this, and that song was kind of huge there for a minute. You know the song, right, Kevin?
Oh yeah.
No.
Been down hard, baby.
I've
So
been
good.
down harder, baby, ever since the day we met.
That. Well,
Plane takes off from Baltimore and
really
touches
like it.
down on Bourbon Street. Do, 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 do. No,
mm-mm.
it's a great song. Go listen to it.
All right.
Check it out after this.
Jerry Cantrell's on this. Silverchair's on this. The Toadies, who again, a lot of these bands were on multiple. Like you said, Cypress Hill. They're all on this. Interdispersed with little clips from the movie. And yes, we have Jim Carrey singing.
Somebody to Love. by,
Don't you want somebody?
Oh my god, I'm blanking on the name of the band that did it.
Jefferson.
Jefferson Airplane.
Oh, shit.
Not
This was-
Jefferson. Wait, was it Starship?
Is it Airplane? God, I don't know. It's same band.
Yeah.
I think it was
Jefferson
airplane.
Jefferson Starship,
Airplane at the
Starship.
time became Start.
I think it was
Jefferson
Airplane
Starship, then
first
became Starship.
because it was early. So it was Jefferson. It was Jefferson Airplane, Jefferson Starship, and Starship.
We'll,
nothing's gonna
we'll
stop us
put it
now.
down there what it is. You say nothing's going to stop us now?
Yes.
Why didn't we put Mannequin 2 on the move on this?
Because I don't know if the soundtrack to Mannequin 2 was any good. That
No.
song's from the first movie.
Isn't Roxette on one of the soundtracks for that?
Probably.
Never
That
happened to
would seem
Roxette.
apropos. She
Yeah.
passed away. Well, the lead singer from Roxette passed away.
Well, I know.
You said whatever happened to Roxette. That's what
Yeah,
happened.
That makes sense.
He passed away. There were two members of the group. He still does stuff, but he's not American.
And just-
Yeah. I don't know their names. I'm sorry. I should. I did it one time. He's not American, so I don't. He still does stuff, but I don't know that he does.
Just look it up. We'll give them their respect right now.
Yeah, Roxette was a great band, man.
Roxette, great
band.
hair. They had great
It's a lot
hair
like
back then.
she was
Swedish
Swedish of her
pop group.
generation.
Oh man, Marie Fredriksson and Per Gessle, Gessle. They're Swedish.
Now you know why I forgot the name.
Sweden's second best-selling music act after ABBA.
Yeah, they were a big band.
They're big.
Like I said, she was the Pink of her generation.
Yeah.
With the hair and everything. They were a fantastic band, in my opinion. Like, and a lot like Blondie. Everybody called her Roxette, but she's not Roxette. That's just the name of the band. Yeah, great band. I highly recommend checking out the Cable Guy soundtrack if you have not. Kevin, you would probably actually like this soundtrack a lot. Now,
Yeah.
I want to say this. I don't hate this movie, actually. It's weird and dark.
It's a very dark movie.
So it wasn't supposed to be. The guy who wrote this movie wrote a buddy comedy, and he was picturing Chris Farley in the lead role. And I think that was kind of intended. And then, I think Chris Farley passed away or whatever. I think he passed away before this movie came out. And it got offered to Jim Carrey, who was, kind of monstrously huge at the time. And they did a lot of changing and rewriting of the script. And the guy who wrote the script at first was like kind of angry. He's like, I see this movie come out and I'm like, that's not my freaking script at all. And then he's like, but then I realized they wrote me a fat check that was in my bank account. And I was like, that's fine. So it's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. Was this
Very-
before Ace Ventura or after?
Oh God, no. This is after.
That was
Okay.
after.
So Ace Ventura is the movie that set him up, and kind of that's why they offered him The Mask. I don't know. And have
And
you
then
ever
The
heard them
Mask
talk-
was huge.
Mhm.
Have you ever heard them talk about this? Is a true story. They said that because they got Jim Carrey on The Mask, they saved probably close to $1 million on special effects budget because he could do some of the stuff with his face just naturally.
Damn.
That's true. You can go research that if you don't believe me. That's true. They've said that. They said we probably cut at least $1 million off the budget because he
That's
was so animated
insane.
with the things he could do. And like they were going to dub over him speaking when he had the teeth in, but he actually learned to talk with the teeth in, so they didn't have to do that either. Yeah,
Man.
it's crazy. Yeah, crazy. All right, this next one is the one I was talking about earlier when I said I think there's a movie on this list that, although it made a buttload of money, it was hated when it came out, but over the years, I think people have started to appreciate it more. And I'm one of those people.
I like it.
I didn't like it when it came out, and I do now. And I
I
think
did, but I was a young, stupid child when it came out.
I get that. I get
Yep.
that. I think the problem for us is that we had these two movies before it, and this one came out and was so different. This movie's Batman Forever.
Also starring Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
Batman Forever
And Korn's on the soundtrack.
made a ton of money.
No, they're not. At least I don't think
I
they are.
I don't think so.
Wait, hold up.
But
Hang
PJ
on.
Harvey is on it.
I think
you too was
Hang
on
on.
here.
You too. The probably the best U2
Hold Me,
song
Kiss
ever.
Me, Kill Me, Throw Me, or whatever the hell
Yeah.
it's called.
Mm-hmm.
In my
And
opinion, probably the
Seal.
best.
And
Kiss
it is
from a
the one
Rose.
with Seal. Dude,
Yeah, we're gonna get to that.
if I ever do karaoke.
Well, it's
I'm gonna
one of
butcher the
the
fuck
two
out of that song.
soundtracks with Kiss from a Rose on it. There was
Yeah.
a song, there was a soundtrack that had it on it first,
So good.
and that was the Never Ending Story 3.
So weird that's
You guys remember talking about that? That was
Mhm.
originally released
I
on the
do.
Never Ending Story 3, and it tanked, and so they redid it for this movie.
Hmm.
So Batman Forever is one of those movies that just at the time, like it made a lot of money, right? 41%. This is a rarity, by the way. This does not happen. This movie gets a higher critic rating than audience. It has a 41% critic and a 32% audience on Rotten Tomatoes.
Surprised
It
it was
was
that high, but
It was just so cheesy
yeah.
and hot off the heels of the first two Batman movies. So there's a lot of things. I actually, again, I'm sorry I keep doing this, but I actually just recently did a video of this too, because there is the Schumacher cut that they're
Yeah.
trying to get released. Joel
now with
Schumacher
more
had,
nipples.
he had a different version of Batman Forever envisioned. And of course, studios come in and they cut a lot. And from what I gather, the tone was darker and a little more in line to what we got from the Tim Burton stuff. But they kind of cut it out and cheesed it up a little. Here's the thing. My daughter recently went back and watched all of these. And I sat down and watched a lot of them with her. And we watched Batman Returns. And then we watched this one. And I went, oh, God, Batman Forever is way better than Batman Returns. There are so many misfires that I don't think we noticed when we saw, and I'm probably going to get hate, guys, and I'm sorry. The first thing is there's very, very, very little Batman in Batman Returns.
I agree.
It's
hard to
mostly
get.
I wasn't a
DeVito
big
being
fan.
gross.
Yeah, I was not a big fan of Batman Returns at all.
Yeah, and Penguin, I just
The
hated.
cereal was good.
The video game for
Remember
Super
when-
Nintendo.
Remember
Awesome.
when every movie had like a serial tie-in,
Yes.
and it was all
Yep.
Captain Crunch, basically.
God, that would have been a cool show to do.
Yeah,
It's a weird time.
Urkelos.
The
Remember that?
movies.
Smurfs
I
had
do.
a cereal.
Yeah. Dude, those were
I used
good.
to-
That was
those
basically
were
like
good.
Captain
Smurf
Crunch
berries,
oops
yeah.
all berries
Captain-
before it
yeah.
happened.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I miss cereal tie-ins.
The Mr. T. I paid for it. Don't eat my Mr. T. The Penguin stuff they did in Batman Returns is just
Yeah.
so gross, and they make him filthy, and I don't like watching him. It just icks me out. It's like,
I feel like that version of Penguin, and hear me out, that version of Penguin may be a little bit ahead of its time. I think if Christopher Nolan had done him like that for the Christopher Nolan run,
I don't like
maybe.
it.
Mm,
It's still
I don't
weird
like him
and
being
gross.
gross, and like
but-
Danny DeVito's talked about it. They put before he would do scenes, they would put this green, black, slimy stuff in his mouth so that when he turned around and started talking, like, what is that?
Yeah.
Right.
Like, it's just gross. And Penguin wasn't gross. He was actually supposed to be
No.
very suave and like,
Yeah.
you know.
More of a gangster.
mobster.
Than
Yeah.
that, yeah.
So now that I go back and watch Batman Forever, what I realize is like, oh, I'm not a big fan
not
of
bad.
the Batman 54 stuff.
Oh. By the way, I just want to say if anybody has not seen Batman Cape Crusader, it is a
I've
good
started
show.
watching it. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Haven't heard of
ignore all the hate that it's getting.
You're going to
'cause,
get hate for anything now.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, but yeah, it's a great show.
You're going to get hate for anything, but there's actually a lot of support for it because people are like, it's not as good as animated series, but it's close.
Question
I
for
watched
you.
first
Knowing
2 episodes.
nothing about this, do you think some of the hate for it is the fact that it's not Kevin Conroy as Batman?
No.
No.
It's
Actually,
mainly-
the dude who does it, the voice is really good.
Yeah, really close to Kevin Conroy,
he
actually.
is.
Yeah.
So much
I-
that it doesn't really take you out where you think it would, but it doesn't. No, a lot of the hate I know up front was because they made Penguin a woman. And of course, everybody lost their mind.
right.
I'm only making that face because that's an odd choice. There's plenty of
Well,
other female characters in the Batman.
Which is why
Yeah.
this is not a woke move. This is just we want to try something a little different move.
yeah,
Mhm.
Because it's not like Batman has any lack of female characters and female bad guys and good guys they could have used. This takes place in the 40s, I think, right? Or the 50s.
Yeah. I would say 40s.
It's supposed to be, it's an
I gotta look
Elseworld.
this up now.
It's an
Mhm.
Elseworld version.
Okay,
of
well
Batman.
that makes a little bit of sense then,
Yeah.
but still weird choice.
Well, she
Said
has
Batman
2
Cape
kids.
Crusader.
I actually don't like, and it's not because they made her a woman. I don't like
Let's see the
some of the early stuff they did with
Artist.
her. Like, I think
It's
the
a
voice didn't fit for me.
weird
Like, they should have
choice.
picked a different Penguin voice or whatever. But
It's like Mimi Driver, and her
Yeah.
voice is way too hot for Oswaldo.
thank you. I agree.
Just,
I thought the
it
same thing.
kind of threw me off a little bit.
like, why do I have an erection looking at the penguin right now? What the hell? Is that
So
what you're saying right
it
now?
is worth checking out, and it's actually doing pretty well though, Kevin. For all the haters, anything's going to get hate now. It's just the way-
Oswalda, just add an
Yeah.
A to the name.
Yeah.
I
Oh
think
my
they were
god!
just trying to do a different spin on
Yeah.
things, and it's an Elseworld version of Batman. That
Mm-hmm.
is very. People need to realize this. It's an Elseworld version, and so it's kind of an alternate universe thing. But if you go back to I'm not a big fan of the Adam West Batman stuff. I never was. But if you start looking at Batman Forever more in that light, where they're kind of doing a little of the silliness
Mhm.
mixed in with some of the more serious, and this movie has actually become a little more of a cult following film over the years, and people actually started liking it more. But again, when you had Batman 89 and then we went to this and they're like, whoa, what's happening? And then
It's a weird jump.
Yeah. But Val Kilmer's good. I like Val Kilmer. I don't like Jim Carrey in this movie at all because he's not the Riddler. He's way over the top for the
Yeah.
Riddler. I think Tommy Lee Jones could have been really good, but they make him a little over the top too.
Yeah.
And Nicole Kidman didn't need to be in this. But all that being said, the soundtrack, we've already kind of hit on it, man. Best U2 song ever, in my opinion, which is Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me. The freaking Offspring are on here. PJ Harvey, once again, we have. Method Man's on this. Flaming Lips are on this. Massive Attack, Brandy.
Just like a little bit of this genre, a little bit of this genre.
And
Right.
as you guys
Put it all
said,
together.
the 3-time Grammy-winning song from 1996, Kiss
One of
from
my
a Rose.
favorite songs of all time. So
The
good.
song was number 5 on the U.S. album chart and went 2 times platinum. Like I said, the movie made money. It did really well, but people just weren't happy with it. They went and saw it because, of course, they were. It's like, oh, we're going
Batman.
like the opening weekend.
Mhm.
It's already.
Yeah.
But the soundtrack, man, the soundtrack is freaking amazing, and that's undeniable. And I like the mix of genres on the soundtrack. It's like we have a little punk, we have a little pop, we have a little R&B. It works. You can put this in and just run the gamut of all the music you like, and it's really cool. I said
No
gamut.
country. Would that be weird? No, you did it right. It was right this time.
I've gotten it right since you guys corrected me.
Mhm.
Thank you. By the
Yeah,
way.
you're welcome.
You know how many people I was walking around like ran the gambit, and they're like, "What the fuck did that dude just say?"
Yeah.
And then I threw a playing card at him.
It exploded.
Okay, so we have 2 more soundtracks to talk about. This next one, I actually really hated adding this movie. Matt and I have talked about this, and I think you've kind of admitted you think there was a reason why you didn't like it as much as you should have. I think this is a lot of people. This movie is from 2011, and it is a little film called Sucker Punch.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I went to theaters and freaking loved this movie. I walked out like, that was great. This is going to do great. And then
Actually,
people
we both saw it together. I think it
Yes,
was-
we did.
Yeah.
Hold up.
Sucker Punch.
Hold up. This is a movie Kevin saw in the theater
There's been a few.
with a person.
There's like a handful. Yeah.
And I've seen a few of them with
Whoa.
him. He just doesn't, yeah.
That's crazy.
So I walked out thinking people are going to love this movie. And they hated it. And I was like, why did people hate this movie so much? I think I'm like one of 6 people in the world that really like this movie.
I need to
Um,
watch it again personally.
It didn't do well.
Given
22%.
our conversation outside of the
Yes,
show,
which I want to
I need to
talk about.
watch this again. Yeah.
22%
I don't remember
critics,
exactly what I said, but
47% audience on Rotten Tomatoes. Soundtrack, however, again, way cool.
Mhm.
It's all covers, but they're done in a very certain style that fits with this movie because it's really dark and the tone of the film is kind of dark and the pacing and stuff. People should watch this again, understanding that the entire movie is a fantasy she concocts in her head
yeah.
to
I remember.
adapt with what's really going on around them. Now things really do happen. And then when they're happening, she does a fantasy version in her
Yeah,
head.
she
of what's happening.
disassociates and she puts
Yes.
herself in a totally
Yeah.
different world.
So basically, there are these girls that are trapped in like a psych ward and they're being abused. They're kind of being used as kind of like sexual slaves to these like well-to-do people. And the movie's all about them breaking out, getting free. And when they're doing their plans and stuff in her world, it turns into this like fantasy battle world. And I think people missed it. They just missed that that's what it was about. And I think when you know that going in, it enhances. I caught it right away, but I guess it was just some people didn't. And Matt, you were a little younger, so that
Yeah.
might have affected.
Yeah.
This
What
is
was your
familiar-
thought? Right.
No, that was what I had said to Jay. I was like, I think that's kind of what was going on, but I'd have to go back and watch it again to see if I was really picking up on that. And it's just not something that hit me at the time when I saw it. And I remember liking it, but I wasn't like, oh my God, this movie has so many like different meanings to it. And the thought of like, shout out to Not a Bomb. I would love to hear them talk about this show or about this
Yeah.
movie, because they go into depth on not only like the budget and the returns on it and everything, but they kind of go into the meaning behind things and see what they say about this. But
and this
does
is
it
Zack
deserve
Snyder.
the hate that it got? Because I really don't think it does.
I don't think it does at all.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I
And
think
this
it's
was
a
like
fantasy story.
Yeah.
Fantasies do that sometimes, man. I think people miss fantasies have a hard time hitting with people. And I can go back Labyrinth, that is a huge cult following now, and people, I loved it as a kid. People worship that movie now. It did horrible in the box office. And I think it's a fantasy film thing. Like, they don't hit people. People don't know what to expect when they go in.
Like, I'll say this. I know people love Legend. I cannot make it through that without falling asleep.
Really? Oh my God, I love it so much. This is a fantasy movie with guns and swords, like samurai swords. That's what this is. Robots, samurai, and it's very steampunk-esque.
Yeah,
And it
yeah,
might have
this
been
came
ahead
out
of
during
time.
the height of steampunk. Really,
I don't think so. I think it came out right before the height of steampunk.
Yeah.
Maybe I could be wrong about that, but I feel
it was
like
kind of right around the same time. I think a lot of people who are into steampunk took inspiration from Sucker Punch.
I think so too.
I
this
think
is a Zack Snyder movie, and this is an
We'll look
early
it up.
Zack Snyder movie.
So we're talking. This is post 300, right?
This
I think
is,
so.
I think right. I want to say 300 was 2009, and I'm probably off. But I feel like this was after 300. We had Watchmen. Which are you guys excited about the Watchmen animated? Because it looks awesome.
This is the first I'm hearing of it.
They're doing a 2-part animated Watchmen movie.
Okay.
It looks so good.
They're going to put the Tales from Black Freighter in there?
I think so.
Because I have that version of the original film.
I've seen it, yeah. I read The Watchmen twice, and then I like the movie, and I understand why they changed what they changed. I do. I get it. It's same. The effect is exactly the same.
Wow. The first time steampunk really made the term steampunk came out in 1987.
Well, the term steampunk's been around for a long time,
Yeah.
but when it hit its height in popularity,
Yeah.
in the 2000s, it became kind of a really big thing again. It had like a resurgence. So I don't know. Very cool album. I'll tell you a little bit about it. Like, Emily Browning does. They have a lot of people doing covers on this. Emily Browning is actually one of the people that does covers. And while the movie was not beloved, the soundtrack was, and her performance was actually kind of praised quite a bit. She does a cover of "Sweet Dreams Are Made of This," and it's really good.
That one's real good. Yeah.
The soundtrack reached number 22 on the Billboard 200, which is awesome. There's a Army of One remix on this. There's which actually does feature Bjork.
Army
of Me.
Yeah, that's what I said.
I was going to say that I distinctly remember that song being in the movie. So
it is.
You said Army of One. Yeah,
I know what I said.
It's fine though. We're not going to bust your balls that much.
They do a cover of White Rabbit. They do. Speaking of,
I was going to say Jefferson Airplane again.
Speaking of, they do a cover of "Asleep," which when I hear the Smiths,
are all of these movies connected somehow by their soundtracks?
It's me when I hear her version of "Asleep." I don't know if you know what that song's about. Anyway, sing me asleep, sing me asleep. I'm tired and I want to go home. You don't know that song? Don't try to wake me in the morning because I will be gone. Oh my God, it's a very touching song. It's about I believe it's about a friend of his who committed suicide. And when you watch it or hear her sing it in context with this movie and the scene that it kind of goes with, it's rough. They also do a really cool version of "Where Is My Mind," like the Pixies' "Where Is My Mind," and it's really good. I highly recommend the soundtrack. Even if you're not a fan of, I think it is. Does Bjork do a song called "Search and Destroy"? Who does that?
That's Iggy Pop.
That's on here too. Anyway, even if you don't like the movie,
Bjork and Iggy Pop confused.
Yeah, well, they look alike.
It happens.
Listen,
what?
Even if you don't like the movie, you should check out the soundtrack. It's really good. I remember after the movie, I rushed out and bought it. So Sucker Punch, great one. And then I threw one more in here. We won't get real in depth in this, but this was one of those. I was really into industrial techno and electronica in the 90s. And I remember in 1997 when they said we're getting a sequel to a 1995 film that I absolutely love. And then we saw the preview, we were like, yes. And then Mortal Kombat Annihilation came out, and we were like, no. It's bad. Like, so bad that certain cast members, actually, it's sad, some of them weren't even asked to come back. Like, I think what's his face, Johnny Cage, Ash
Oh, he dies like in the first like few minutes of the damn
which is
movie.
I guess great that they got a different guy to play him, because that would have been a real big bummer for him.
Right.
The movies, and of course Sonya is played by a different person. Like, it's just cram as many names in and bad effects as we can. But the soundtrack is this really fun. We have Megadeth, Juno Reactor, Scooter, Rammstein, Lunatic Calm, and KMFDM, amongst others. It is electronica, freaking techno, just badass fight scene 90s. Like, it's just what you would want it to be. The movie got a 4% on Rotten Tomatoes.
4?
From critics, yeah.
Wow.
It did
That's
make
like
a
one guy went, I like it.
I like it.
All right. 4%.
So the other night, just for shits and giggles, I was laying in bed. I'm like, I want to watch something. And I'm scrolling through. I'm like, let's watch Street Fighter.
Oh, God.
Well, sometimes you just do.
Sometimes you need
know
Raul
it-
Julia in your life.
You know,
Yeah,
it's
sometimes you
bad.
need something to just fall asleep to. I get it.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, you know it's bad, but there's this weird kind of like, I hate this and love it. And
I
I
get it.
don't know why. And Mortal Kombat Annihilation is like that. Like, I hate it, but part of me loves it because those movies yank you back to a very specific time in your
Mhm.
life. And
Mm.
You're
sometimes
getting
you do
home
it
from
just to live it
school a
down.
little early and you want to play your Sega Genesis, eat some pizza rolls.
Right.
You know,
I don't want to go do that right now.
that sounds like an awesome day, to be honest.
It doesn't sound bad. I want to order a pizza. And, you know, one of my favorite things to do back in then.
We can do that. We're fucking adults, man. We can
I
do whatever the
know.
hell we want.
Damn
Now,
it.
I can't do it the way I used to, because one of my favorite things to do in my early 20s was to order a thin crust pizza on a Sunday afternoon, order a thin crust pizza, sit on the couch and find some cheesy horror films. The problem now is I got people
Fuck, I do
that
that
won't let me watch
all
my
the
movies.
time now. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, kids,
Yeah.
your wife doesn't really, I don't think she's much of a TV person.
Not really, but she does definitely walk in the room and question my thoughts and everything. Just go, what the fuck is wrong with you? So, but I love her for it. So,
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, Matt,
yes.
you said that in such a way as if this is a downfall of hers.
No,
We
it's
need to
downfall of mine.
clarify that it is not. It
This is
is
not.
Matt.
She is in her
But I
right
love her.
mind.
But I
am
love her
not.
for it means I love her for putting up with me.
Yes, that's what I mean. Yeah. She endures a lot.
Connie, yeah, she's a saint.
Yeah.
Saint Conifer.
She's seen
we're gonna
St. Conifer
Coniferous. Saint Coniferous
like
the
a
third.
tree.
Somebody call the Vatican. We need
She is like a tree.
some-
Yeah.
She's there. She's
She's
supportive.
sturdy. She's
Saint-
my rock, but also a tree.
She's the Rock. Oh
Yeah.
my god, I didn't know it.
She has given me the people's elbow a couple of times.
So
Not intentionally. It's just she's a
Those-
very rough sleeper.
those were our list of soundtracks. I really quick wanted to mention something, and I didn't realize till I got done with this. I want to give a couple honorable mentions that aren't soundtracks, but these are movies that sucked, but they had a really great theme song.
Okay.
St. Elmo's Fire. Oh god, it's just rapey and weird.
The entire Brat Pack. It's what? It's rapey? Is that what you said?
Oh god, yeah, St. Elmo's Fire.
I've never
Very
seen
rapey.
this movie.
It's very rapey.
Another
It's boring,
very-
Matt. It's boring.
I'm fine with not watching it.
Caddyshack 2. Nobody's Fool from Caddyshack 2 is such a great song.
For a
Such a
horrible
bad
horrible
movie. Considered one of the worst sequels
No,
of
not
all
who I thought
time.
it was.
Considered who do you think it was?
I was like, I thought that was Rob Lowe, and that who is that
He's
guy?
in St. Elmo's Fire,
Yeah,
but
Who's-
that's not him. Caddyshack.
who's the guy behind?
he was
he
in
was-
Weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah, that's
one
what I
and
know.
Yeah,
two,
he's the dude from Weekend at Bernie's, and
It's not Andrew McCarthy.
No,
but Nobody's Fool from Caddyshack 2. They get because Caddyshack, of course, had the first movie had
Kenny Loggins.
Kenny Loggins, and so they get him back for this. Actually, get him back, and they do this theme song, and this theme song is so good. And then you watch the movie, you're like, oh, this is garbage.
Yeah, they couldn't get the original cast back, so they're like, let's try to get the original soundtrack.
They got Chevy
cast
Chase back,
Yeah.
I mean,
and he's
was it
the
worth
only
it?
one. They couldn't even get Bill Murray, so they give Dan Aykroyd this really weird part.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
Kind of try to.
I watched this recently, and it is
Sorry.
straight trash. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
bad.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good at all. The next one also is Kenny Loggins. Really dumb movie that I can't
He
figure out
really
why they
was
made.
the soundtrack king.
But
Pretty
God,
much.
Meet Me Halfway from Over the Top is a great song. The movie's dumb.
I mean,
He
I'd
drives
be
down the
lying if
road
I didn't say I
now.
started arm wrestling my friends because of this movie.
They made toys, arm wrestling toys in the 90s.
I feel
Hey.
like I had some of them
He drives down the
Probably.
road working out one arm in his
in this big rig. I'm gonna
But
go
the
pick up my
song-
son.
The song is so good though.
God.
Meet me halfway across the sky. It's so good.
Yeah.
And the last one I really want to bring up is and my wife was like, "Oh, I love that movie." I'm like, "Yeah, well, you're one of 3 people who like Cool World because it's not good." But when you have a song called Real Cool World with David Bowie at the helm, the song is freaking awesome.
Yeah. We
The
actually
movie
have some
right
original Hollywood artwork, like from the film, some of the original animation cells.
God,
Yeah,
you
this is
remember
like
how
one
it's
of Brad Pitt's like first roles.
first
I
movies?
think.
Yeah, it might have been his first film role.
I think that was Thelma and Louise, but
Yeah.
You're right.
but-
You're right. This was like his first starring role or something like that.
Damn, that
Yeah.
is sad. Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh,
And it
like
could've
he's gonna
changed
be a
his
big
career.
star.
This movie, I remember seeing the previews, and we were all like, "Yes, it's like a more adult version of Roger Rabbit." And we saw it, we're like, "What?" Like,
right.
No,
it was
I'd say it's his
weird.
first big.
Yeah, I think it was like his
starring
first starring role.
Yeah, he did a movie in 1988 called Dark Side of the Sun. Never heard of it personally.
That's an
but
album. It's like, "I'll meet you on the dark side of the sun."
You just flip over Dark Side of the Moon, and that's the B side of.
I don't
Dark Side of
think
the
there
Moon.
is a dark side of the sun. That's kind of dumb. You think, well, there is
That's
no
true,
dark
yeah.
side. of the sun's a bad.
That is a
So there
really
you go.
stupid. Also, he's in Cutting Class as well, but that's
So
everybody knows about Cutting Class, right?
I've cut class. What?
Yeah.
It's
No.
a slasher movie,
Oh, yeah, I do. Yeah.
1989. Yeah.
Now that you said it, it took me a second, and I'm like, oh yeah, actually, I do know about this movie.
Yeah.
So there's some movies that have great soundtracks, and you might not want to watch the movie, or maybe you do. Hell, go watch them. I mean, why not? What better thing do you have to do today? Just go watch some of these movies and then tell us about
Well,
it. 'Cause
I got to order some pizzas and just kind of sit it.
Break out the Sega Genesis,
Yeah.
dust it off.
I'll see you in a little bit. So
Right.
we have a lot of things going on. There's been some discussion about when we should do this, and I figure let's do it now. Let's kind of brace the people for what's coming. This, I believe, will be episode 147 of this show, and that's not including interviews and special one-offs. I don't know how many
We should actually
episodes.
figure that up.
we should.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, the other day I sat down in preparation for a few things, and I figured I listed all the guest hosts we've had, and I've got all the interviews we've had, and I was shocked at the number of interviews. I
Yeah.
really was kind of like, oh wait, it was way more than I realized.
There's some we've
Uh,
forgotten. Like wait, we interviewed them. Oh, okay.
This
Which
is a weird thing to
There's
break.
some replays going out as well because some family members of mine went and saw Everclear. So I was like, hey, you should check out this episode. And they listened to the show and they're like, wow, this is really good. I'm going to start
Well,
listening to the show again.
In full honesty, because I've been horrible with this lately, we have 2 that I haven't even put up. You put them up video, but I haven't gotten them up audio.
Yeah.
Mike Kaplan and Sound and the Fury.
Yeah.
I don't even have them up because it's just,
Which, speaking of Sound and the Fury, you actually mentioned the Mortal Kombat Annihilation soundtrack in that interview.
yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, no, you said that
Beautiful.
listening to their music was like driving around
Reminded me
with
of
the windows
Megadeth,
down.
Cryptic Writing. Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
Cryptic Writings
yeah.
and the Mortal
Yeah.
Kombat Annihilation soundtrack.
Yeah, and he dug that analogy because it was
Yeah.
like, I know it's gonna sound weird.
He had a
This is weird
confused
thing
look
to
on his
break.
face for a minute, but he got it. He got it eventually.
the three of us have done a lot of talking, and I don't think it's probably going to shock anybody too much, but we are getting to the point on this show where we're kind of like, okay, we're kind of done with some of the stuff. There are things we would love to talk about, but
Yeah.
it's hard for
Some
us.
stuff we just can't talk about due to limitations with
Right.
the medium.
We've hit limitations, yeah, and it's really aggravated us. We've run into some problems with some things on the places where the show goes up and things like that. Not just YouTube.
Usually,
Spotify.
any time that somebody whose initials are MG gets mentioned, and
That's
that
one
guy.
of them. Bon Jovi is another one that has hit us a few times.
Wasn't Guns N' Roses?
I don't think so.
I feel like
he
that-
really just needs
Yeah.
all the support he can get right now.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about it, and we really enjoy doing a show together. And this is one of the things we look forward to as friends, just getting together.
Yeah.
But this show, we don't want it to pod fade. We want to end on our terms. So we are going to aim towards an ending. You will still be getting quite a few episodes before that happens. We will likely be finishing out this season. What's going to be going on in the background, though, is the three of us are going to be working on a whole new show. It may or may not. We'll talk about what it is later. May appeal to some of you, may not. I don't know. It's
We'll
definitely
find out.
a departure from this, but it's going to bring our personalities into something quite a bit different.
Mhm.
We'll let you guys know what that is when we get there. But we're going to be giving you quite a few more episodes, so we're not going to be gone in a week or something.
Yeah.
And we've got some really cool stuff planned for the end. We have, I think, some really fun stuff planned for the end. So we'll let you guys know more about the new show. We're going to be working on it in the background. We're going into it a little more prepared than we were for certain things. And we'll talk a lot about this show before we go out. But I kind of wanted to give you guys a heads up that it was coming. We don't want to fade. We want to go out on our terms. There's a lot of podcasts pod fade. And when we're done with this, it'll be 5 years of this show. And I feel like that's pretty good for a podcast.
Yeah.
I know shows like TLP and stuff have been around
Yeah.
for 20 plus
20
years.
fucking years. God damn.
Damn.
And we've talked about it on here. Like, that's 5 years of content, which is, like you said, not a lot in the grand scheme of things, but 5 years of us doing the same type of thing. And we've evolved over time with that. Like, I joined like halfway through. So I'm the new guy,
I don't know if it was halfway, but yeah.
something like that.
The
you know.
shows that we
pretty
do
early.
now compared to
talking
like
about-
our first early shows,
Yeah.
night
Totally
and day
different.
difference.
Yeah.
And we are going to do an episode where we literally talk about all of this.
Yeah.
The evolution of the show, our favorite interviews, things like that. So all that's coming.
Yeah.
And so we got some really cool content coming before we get there. I just wanted to start giving you guys a heads up. So
Yeah.
that being said, we're going to end this episode. And thank you guys. We love all you guys, and we hope that some of you come over when we do the new show, and we'll give you more details as that comes about. But yeah, that's we just wanted to let you know.
Yeah.
Let us know some of the and to Steve Barber, who does the Cubicle Chat podcast. I'm sorry, man. He tried to call us. See, none of you guys ever called us. And
Yeah,
we
about
lost
that.
the phone line. There's nothing to really do. If it sits inactive for too long, it just goes away. And he tried to call us, and he's like, I couldn't get through. I'm like, yeah.
We should have had a text line. Nobody calls. They all
You
text.
should go listen to his podcast, though, the Cubicle Chat. He
Yeah.
also does Armchair Booking Wrestling. Go check him out. He's been on the show. We did a metal episode with him.
It was the
Metal.
80s metal episode, I think.
Yeah, we were always talked about doing a 90s one. We just never ended up doing it. Probably won't now. So, but I would like to get your guys' feedback. So drop us an email or something. Let us know if there is a movie where you thought the soundtrack was so good, but the movie sucked so bad. Drop us a line. Let us know and what you thought of these. If there were any that really hit home with you. And you should check all of them out because they're really good. But that's all I got. I'm not even going to give the guys the opportunity because every time I say, do you guys got anything? They go,
I actually have something.
Oh,
I actually
all right.
have something.
all right.
right
What
now.
do you
Hold
got
on,
now? What do
So
you got?
I know,
Okay.
right? Okay. So I actually loaded a photo into our slideshow for this. Those of you who are like alternative
While
music
we were
fans,
recording, I just
while we're recording, yes, I did that.
I saw it like what is flashing across
Yeah.
the screen.
So those of you who are alternative music fans, particularly in the Kansas City area, I don't know what the hell is going on with our local radio stations lately. Got to say this in order to promote a friend of the show more than we have in the past. Lately, a lot of the alternative and rock music stations in Kansas City have been changing formats entirely. Our alternative radio station, 96.5 The Buzz, is becoming sports talk radio. One of them went from being an alternative station to a far right talk radio station. And like people from the rock station 98.9, the afternoon show, they lost their jobs. The people from the afternoon show on 96.5 transferred over to that station. So it's all in chaos. So I'm saying all that to say this. If you're sick of terrestrial radio like I'm getting, I highly recommend everybody add Altascape Radio, classic alternative, 24-hour streaming music, uncensored. It is so good. You can listen to it through live365.com. Get that app, get on there. You can listen through their website. You can do all that. Good friend of ours, Jeff DeBoer, sorry, mispronounced his name. He runs this. He's currently looking for more support, and he's actually trying to kind of get more people involved in the radio station to help grow it. And it's already awesome as it is. And we put it on yesterday while we were driving around in the car, and there was not a bad song that came up once.
Cool.
It was so good.
Nice.
You and I have
So-
talked about this briefly a couple of times about Altascape. Yeah, definitely go check it out. It's cool to support things like this, especially for people who love music in such a way
Yeah.
that they're going to go and try to put out, what we used to have that we do not have anymore. So
Yeah.
Right.
definitely.
They
go check
literally
it out.
went from like Dead Kennedys to the Smiths right after that.
Nice. Oh, my
And,
wife would
like, it
probably
was-
really this.
Oh yeah. And
Yeah.
and the thing is, like, he's actually, due to I'll just call it the shakeup of music, radio stations in Kansas City. He's trying to make it less Kansas City related and make it more nationwide to kind of like grow the audience a little bit. Because he does have like a little bit of like, Kansas City related stuff that happens periodically. So,
Oh.
but yeah, it's a good station to listen to. Like 80s, 90s, and current alternative music. So give it a listen.
Check it out, mother.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where am I pointing? Yeah.
I don't know
All
where
you guys.
All right. Well, I assume Kevin doesn't have anything.
I'm good.
All right. Well, check out
Go on this whole
Altascape Radio,
diatribe.
guys.
Yeah.
Please do. It's a really cool thing they're doing. And drop us a line, and we'll keep you updated as things go.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We're going to close this one out. We love you guys. Remember, until next time we speak, to always
Stay awesome.
Stay awesome.
Woo-woo. Woo. Woo.
Thank you for watching the mixtape. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Click the bell icon for notifications when new videos come out. And remember to always stay awesome.